Today I'm going to be talking to Rob Ferguson. Hi, Rob. Can you hear me?
Hello.
Right? Hi.
I'm good. Hi, how you doing?
Yeah, very good. Good. Thanks for being on. Right. Traditional first question then. What do you do?
Well, quite a few things. I suppose I'm a teacher and a theatre musician, really.
Right.
That's,
okay.
Yeah.
So
as a broad thing, that's probably it. Yeah.
Well, that sort of sounds nice and simple, but I'm sure it's not quite as simple as that, is it? But so let's sort of have a look at how you started off. So you're a guitar player. Anything else?
No, just guitar really. Yeah, I dabble in a bit of bass here and there, but I'm not really that keen on it. I've never been that good at it, so no.
I thought you did say. I thought you did say you dabbled in ukulele, but you weren't that keen on that. But
no, yeah, I get sent emails quite a bit about ukulele, and I'm like, no, sorry, no.
Yeah. Just a bit of an in joke. Okay, so when did you sort of start being interested in music?
I had this conversation last night, actually. How weird. Because the video of Walking on the Moon came on, Police. Right. And that's probably my earliest memory of. So I'm not sure the year of that. It's probably what, 83 maybe.
Yeah, probably. I
don't know. 83, 84.
Yeah,
I'm not sure. And I remember sitting there thinking that was it as a kid. That song really stuck in my head. And then my mum used to listen to things like Lionel Richie and things like that. So that kind of was quite a big influence. I suppose the guitar stuff on that, the Steve Lukather stuff, so it was probably stuck in my head a bit.
Yes, yeah.
And then it was my older brother, really, who got into bands like Bon Jovi and Guns N' Roses and things that kind of then pushed me to that side of it. Yeah.
It's interesting, actually, that how the older brother situation is a big influence. It was for me, and an older sister as well. So, but yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? Because you don't realise at the time how their musical interests are really sort of.
And he's a good guitar player himself as well. Now he's more acoustic and also tunings and things, and sort of plays by ear. But he's a good player himself.
Yeah. So, what age then, when you did you have a sort of an epiphany where it's like, no, I'm going to play the guitar, or was it just something that developed over time, or what was it?
It's just taking me back. My next door neighbour, the boy that lived next door, I used to play with, he had a guitar, but it was sat in the corner of his room. He never touched it. And I remember saying one night, I must have been about 8 or 9, and I said, "Oh, can I borrow that and take it home?" And I just messed around on that for a bit of time, until about the age of, it was 10 or 11, when I got an electric guitar for Christmas one year.
Right.
But yeah, I've been messing around on this acoustic for years and years, just getting the feel for it and how to make a note and create a note and things like that.
So that's probably, you see, there's an interesting thing here, actually. You're sort of saying it, because you were already playing a guitar that belonged to somebody else, and then you get a guitar bought for you. Because I always think it's an interesting thing where there is that sort of, how can we put this, like a sort of a threshold that stops some kids learning, which is having an instrument. Because for a lot of parents, it's like, They don't want to go and fork a load of money out for something that's another 5-minute wonder.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And you probably see this anyway, don't you, with your work, your teaching work, where you get kids, it's like two extremes, isn't there? You get the kid who's got everything, and it doesn't matter whether they start, and then there's the other ones that just don't start because they don't get the opportunity to.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah.
And I think that's still as relevant today as it was, well, certainly when I was growing up anyway. But,
yeah, I think so. I think I would have been one of those kids as well that wouldn't have had the opportunity as well. I think, I would have been that.
So by the fact that you had that guitar, yes, that's really cool. So you get this electric guitar then. What happens? Do you sort of go full on there?
Yeah, I think. Do you remember French music in Gillingham?
Yeah.
Yeah, Jeff. It came from there, the second-hand shop, and then I got this book with it, and I remember looking at this book and thinking, a chord book with all these dots all over it, and thinking, I haven't got 10 fingers. How do I do that? I don't know. I just seem to manage to pick up a few chords here and there. And then there was a guy that lived down the road who played guitar, and then sort of taught me a couple of more chords and things. And then once you could start stringing them together, I think that was it. It was
that's a really interesting thing here, because obviously we've sort of come from a period of time where there wasn't a massive amount of information out there, and whatever you could get your hands on was a bit limited, really. Like you said, the chord book that you sort of looked at and thought, oh my God, what's that? There's more than one way of playing that chord. Oh my goodness, because I was always interested in like the chord, the 10,000 guitar chord books. You know what I mean? How many chords are there, type of thing. And I always sort of, because I had a conversation with, I'm just trying to think if it was Jeff Everett, and the fact that he was playing, no, it might not have been Jeff, it might have been somebody else. No, I can't remember. But it was this sort of thing about playing lots of songs that were like big band, not necessarily big band, for like the organ type of thing, whether you'd get the sort of fake book.
Yes, yeah.
And I think there's a lot of that, isn't there? With once you've got your head around the chords, and then you start to be able to string them together. And then you start to be, I don't know whether you did this or not, but you start to create ideas for yourself out of that, putting a bunch of chords together. And you start to build I think it's only in retrospect, you realize you start to build a technique, however ham-fisted it is, by experimentation.
Very much. Yeah. Yeah, very much so. Yeah. And I remember the day I learned the power chord.
Yeah.
I think that was one of my brother's mates who was obviously 5 years older, a teenager, had come from school one day, and I can play this, and I think he was playing it with like the wrong fingers now, thinking back to it and all this kind of stuff. And I remember that was the day that yes, I actually sound like what I want to sound like.
Yeah, exactly. That's sort of an epiphany, isn't it?
It was, and then that's where I suppose started, because like you say, you didn't unless you had a crazy good ear and you could work out songs, you tended to write your own songs quite quickly. Yeah, because you're just joining chords together and moving them around. Yeah. Actually, thinking back to it, that was quite a big thing, actually.
So here's a question: I don't think that happens now.
No, not at all. It's so visual driven, isn't it? Now, I think with teaching, and everyone just jumps onto YouTube or Googles everything they want to hear, and it's
because I've got this this sort of thing about, if you know what somebody did, it sort of loses something about that, falling into getting something slightly wrong, but developing a style.
Yeah.
I don't see that now, because why? That everything's out there, and in a way, it might be sort of detrimental to what's happening with music, contemporary music anyway, because you don't seem to have people who are really original.
No, not at all. Yeah, certainly popular music, or what we would deem as popular music. Yeah. It's again, another conversation I had the other day. Someone was talking about what's in the top 10, and I said I haven't got a clue.
No.
And then you listen and you think, well, they all sound generic.
That's what I'm getting at. There's that sort of thing that everything's pretty much the same as everything else, because they're not going to make any mistakes. And
I actually watched the Christmas Top of the Pops this year, and I think I counted 3 songs that had the same chord progression. I thought,
yeah. I saw a bit of it, and that was only a fragment of it, and that was enough for me.
Enough, yeah, that's it. It was
awful, wasn't it?
It was
sterile.
Yeah,
totally sterile.
And it's just almost disposable music nowadays.
Yes. Yeah, I totally agree with you. And that is something that's come up in conversation with different people. What on earth's happening? Paul, so now you've got your power chord.
Yeah.
So now you can sound like, whoever, Jimmy Page or whatever's the flavour of the month. What starts to happen then? Do you get this sort of moment where things start to really click?
Yeah, there was a really important book, actually. I don't know if you remember. God knows who it's written by. I can't remember, but there's a thing. It's called Monster Scales and Modes. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Book? And it had snakes on some guy's fingers and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But actually, that's probably moving a bit later. But by then, I was probably fairly competent, with like a pentatonic scale and little chords and things. But it was that book that really kind of was a step up. Once I actually the problem with that book was it was written as right, here's a major scale and then here's a Dorian mode, and then after you get 5 or 6 you suddenly realize, hang on a minute, they're all the same 5 shapes here.
Cool. So that's right.
So it was only until I got about sort of 6 in that I suddenly realized I've just done the same thing over and over again. And then so that really pushed the level up. But at that point it was that one book, actually.
That's interesting. I had a similar thing with classical guitar, where, because I was studying classical, of course you used to get the associated board scales and arpeggios, and of course they're all written out in notation. And of course, by the time you played about 4 or 5, you think, hang on a minute, it's all the same shape. Why don't they just tell you?
You just give you the shape,
but of course that's not how you're supposed to do it in classical. But that is interesting. That sort of, because it's almost, I think this is something that maybe that's peculiar to guitar. I don't know, but it's almost like there's an operating system, if you put it in computer terms. There's the thing that's on the screen, right, which is whatever it is, your scales and everything. But there's sort of like, if you understand the operating system, like they're the same shapes, right? Depending on where you are, in the modes, they're basically the same thing. And it's like understanding that. And there are a few things on guitar like that which wouldn't sort of make sense on the piano, like bar chords moving around, for instance. And and I think that may be the thing that when you're exploring guitar, like from where we came from playing, you arrive at that quicker. Because it's like you see it, and it's like you were saying about that book, you do it for a while and then suddenly the penny drops and you go, hang on a minute, they could have written this a lot easier by just doing this.
And that's the same with general music theory as well. I think the more I read myself and worked it out for myself, the better it went in my head. Trying to teach it now and different things now, it's almost like there's a barrier all the time, and it's like, but there's not that. It doesn't seem to be a lot of want to learn it.
No,
in a way. And there's and then that obviously leads on to improvisation. And I find a lot of students can play a lot of stuff, but you ask them to create, and they just, they come to a complete silence.
Here's one of my bugbears. So I've got to put this out here. Okay, so I've noticed recently, well, in fact, this is not necessarily a recent thing because I have spotted this before, but when you do the sort of things like the rock, I'm examining for, say, the rock exams, you get somebody come along and they're doing, whatever, grade 7 or something like that. And they play, they do whatever, they're Eddie Van Halen or whatever. And the solos and stuff, great. You look at that and you think, oh my, really good,
Yeah.
And then you get to the bit where they improvise. And it's like, they're like grade 4.
Yeah.
It's like, you think, where are all those amazing techniques that you could do when you were playing that solo by, Randy Rhoads?
Exactly.
Where is it in your playing? Because it's not there.
The same thing you were saying about the penny drops, isn't it? I don't think a lot of people, it just doesn't, I can pinch that, I can still do that, I can take that.
Yeah,
and you think, just don't seem to get it.
Yeah, exactly. Because again, obviously improvisation is all based on, it's like a language, isn't it? You learn to speak the language of whatever the genre is that you're playing by listening to other people who play that music, and then taking some of their ideas and then refocusing that. So it's you speaking, but you're speaking the language of whatever.
Yeah.
And it's fascinated me. The first time I experienced that, I was doing a gig, and I was working with a horn section. We were all standing outside, and the band who were on sort of before us, they were sort of, it was a bit sort of dull. And then they did a version of Crossroads, the Cream's version of Crossroads. And it was like the young guitarist had the solos down, note for note from the live recording. And I thought, it's interesting. And then after they finished that song, they went back to all this sort of boring stuff, and there was nothing interesting in the guitar playing at all.
No.
Nothing. So I thought, that's really curious. Why is that? So, and as I say, I haven't got the answer for that. I'm just saying it's just something I've noticed. But you think about improvisation. I think that's...
I think it probably stems back to what you were saying at the beginning about you get something, you learn some chords, you create yourself. And it probably goes back to that.
I think so. Yeah. I think it's that sort of having the sound in your head, whatever that is, where you just have an instinct to where you want to go when if you're putting chords together. You sort of think, that one sounds all right. It's that sort of thing. And eventually it's the same sort of idea about the feel of something or the nuances that you just instinctively know when you play like that. You just know that is the way that you do that, or how you
trying to build people's ear as well. Go home and work out a song. Don't go home and look at it on YouTube or look it up on Ultimate Guitar or something. Go home and actually try and listen to it.
Yeah.
No one does it.
No, they don't, do they? And have you got a sort of a way? Because I think that's a really important point. Do you have a way of doing that when you say to go home and work on something? Have you any particular pieces that you sort of go, well, why don't you just try?
Not particular ones, really. No, it usually coincides with sort of trying to teach harmony, like chords and keys and things.
Yeah.
And then I might sort of pick something, Britpoppy, Oasis or something like that, and, rather than go home and try and work out and he's playing a G chord, try and actually figure it out that he's playing simple stuff, anything that I can sort of, or something that maybe appeals to them a bit, rather than, just sort of, I don't know, go home and work out a nursery rhyme or something.
Unless of course you get them to do a nursery rhyme and then use the notes in a different order and write another song. because I've seen that done quite a lot, and that's actually, I think it's quite a cool thing. But so what happens then? You've got, you're obviously beginning to get quite good. Do you get to this sort of point where you go like, right, okay, I'm now going to do, what was it? What was the next step? Join a band, go to college? What is it?
My school years were quite funny because I practically bunked most lessons and just played guitar.
All right.
So, yes, and never got told off for it once, actually, thinking back to it, things like that. But I think after I left school, I went on to music college, level 3 course kind of thing. And I think at that point, I was doing grade exams. Yeah, well, I was, yeah. Yeah, so I'd come in and sort of thought, I want to get these grades down. And actually, I think I started at grade 6, actually, was where I went in. So, like I said, that book that I'd learned from had kind of done everything up to sort of grade 6 anyway, to start with, So it was pretty good. But yeah, I do remember finding that quite tricky because the switch over of sort of all of a sudden, I had to learn all these 9 chords and all that kind of things, and which was a bit, I suppose, I think I was about sort of 15, 16 at the time. So it was that was quite, I remember that being quite tough.
It is for a lot of people, unless of course you're interested in jazz anyway or whatever.
Yeah,
it's something like that. You get these chords, don't you? That it's like, where the hell did they come from?
Yeah, and how can I use them? And
exactly.
It's like, but then my musical taste changed at that point as well. Actually, I started, I got very into sort of, Sting and things like that, and the Police, and really sort of delved into that rather than listening to, Guns N' Roses, Metallica, and things, that kind of rubbish.
Yeah.
And even at college, I think my final recital was like a weird flamenco thing, which is bizarre thinking about it now. But that's why, and Al Di Meola become a big influence.
Yeah, right. Oh, okay. Oh, well, that's a bit of a.
He did an album with Paco de Cia and
John McLaughlin.
Like, the One Night in San Francisco.
Then that's like insane.
Yeah, it just absolutely stuck with me, that album. It's brilliant.
Yeah, incredible album. Yeah, that's amazing. So once you finished the college course, then what happens? You come back, because where did you go to do the college course?
That was a local. Where was that? Maidstone.
Oh, okay.
Mid-Kent or something. Yeah. So that was like a 2-year thing, and then I'd done my grades at that point, and then I think after that I was just playing in bands, really, sort of doing bits and bobs, and nothing really ever took off, was really that great, and things. And then I started teaching. I started teaching adult education around sort of art. Actually, that was after that. So I was about 19, I think, when I started doing that, which was a real learning curve, actually.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
This is fascinating because it's similar to what I did, because I taught in adult education, but not guitar, weirdly. I did some stuff about songwriting, but the first time, because I went down, this was in Gray's End, and I went in to see this guy who turned out to be quite an important person eventually for me, because he got me into a couple of schools. And I said to him, I can teach guitar or whatever. And he said, and he went, oh, we've already got somebody doing that. He said, but what else can you do? Because he could have just gone, oh, we've already got somebody.
Yeah, exactly.
But he said, but what else can you do? And I went, well, I've just finished a music course up in London and it was run by like the management of the Human League and Gang of Four and people like that. So it was real sort of punky street cred. And he went, do that. And it was like, oh, okay. So I basically took the ideas that I got from there and my own experience of playing in bands. And it was so good, such good fun. And it really got me thinking that, apart from just teaching, but then, as you say, it becomes a learning curve, doesn't it? Because you're then teaching adults. People are much older. If you were only 19, people that are much older than you. And that's actually quite difficult, isn't it, to start with?
I made a mistake one. I don't know the conversation. I can't remember the conversation now, but I remember talking about someone said something about the Beatles, and stupidly, obviously now I've got a different opinion. But it's like I remember saying something like, "I don't really rate them," and his comment was, "Well, you wasn't there," and that was it. It just put me in my place straight away.
That's quite funny, actually, isn't it? Yeah. But it was it's that type of thing you had to be very careful of, that you couldn't. You should put the foot in it. Yeah, I know. That's good. So, okay, so you've got, obviously there's a lot of stuff developing from, because it's quite grassroots what you're doing. This, isn't it? It's not like you've gone to, well, I don't know what there was back then, because we've got BIM and Brit School and goodness knows what now that people can do. But
that wasn't until later.
No,
I did that.
So what did you do?
So between the sort of ages of sort of 20s to my 30s, that's apart from playing sort of the odd band stuff, I was doing a lot of I got involved in the local sort of amateur dramatics, like musical theatre.
Oh right, okay.
And that's kind of, so I was doing a lot of pit stuff for all the local theatre companies and things.
Right. So that's really interesting. So what was the first thing that you did? Because this is the bit I was quite intrigued by with what you're doing, like even now,
Goes back to college actually, and school actually. First thing I did was play in the pit for Greece at school.
Yeah. Oh, that's good.
Yeah, which is quite an easy one. But, yeah, and then I think there was a few at college. Godspell was one of them.
Yeah. So were you a good reader at this point?
No, again, that's a thing that's come later, I think. Obviously, you can play guitar, you don't, and like obviously the RGT grades and things, reading's not an essential part of it, is it? No. So once I kind of got that, and then I sort of taught myself to read. And the more, probably a later thing actually, the more transcribing I did, the better reader I become.
Yeah.
And that's what I find is probably the best thing for any guitarist.
Yes, absolutely. That's brilliant. Because I've always had this thing of sometimes the best way to learn something is to do it from the other perspective. So if you want to be a good reader, you need to write music down.
Yes.
If you want to be a good songwriter, play songs by other people, that type of thing. It's that reverse logic, because it's almost like you get the perspective from the other side. Because a lot of the problems with music reading is you're hitting your head against the wall trying to read something that you probably don't really like. But if you start transcribing things that you really enjoy listening to,
that's it. And I think that kind of obviously guitar's got that inherent problem of which I don't think a lot of other musicians really give credit for actually, but where something can be played in multiple positions, and things like that.
So the guitar's a nightmare for reading, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's generally harder anyway. But it's,
it is. It's the worst instrument to read on, I think.
I think so. Yeah, and then it's so I suppose the more. I think what I find, especially trying to teach it, is rhythm. Guitarists just have a problem reading rhythm. But the more I transcribe, the better I got at reading rhythm and stuff like that. So it all helped. It was all.
You've sort of highlighted what the problems are for.
Yeah.
Because again, if you played violin, you're never going to play chords on a violin, are you?
No, yeah.
So you just get good at reading single lines,
Single lines, so a sax player would come in and they'd just have a single line.
Yeah, exactly. But of course, with guitar, it's polyphonic, so you've got all the problems. Yeah,
kind of problems. But
so with the show work, then, so you've started off with this, and you're doing, doing some pit stuff. Where does that become? Because it was quite a bit. I don't know where you are in the scheme of things now, because with everything, but it is quite a big part of what you do, isn't it? Sort of playing for shows.
Yeah. Well, the theatre shows I do now aren't really. They're not the same thing at all. It's basically a live concert of, right, like I say, it's a tribute show of somebody, which is so you're a band on stage. You're actually part of the actual show, which is really, I much prefer that.
It sounds good.
It's better for what I do now. Yeah. So and all those things. Yeah, so going back, you'd get people would send you the charts for a show, and then usually send you a recording as well, which is quite handy. So you could do a bit of practice before. It started out as Deps actually, on a Motown show and things like that. I started sort of depping for a lot of these sort of things, and then and then that couple of sort of, oh, can you do a show in like 6 weeks' time? It gives you 6 weeks to sort of look at it and get it roughly under your fingers. So any of those like parts we were talking about, like that could be played, you'd work out the best way to do it and things. And then,
and also, because if you're playing for a Motown show, you've got to have a Motown sound, haven't you? So I mean, it's not just a case of just playing the notes, is it?
No, that was probably my biggest downfall with Motown show. Actually. Sound. Yeah,
but it is actually
slightly too heavy or slightly, not too.
Yeah. It's really difficult to get the sounds for a lot of these things. So, is there a knack for that?
Well, the sound for things I do. No, I kind of use the gear I use and like the gear. I'm not a gear phobe at all. When you speak to like musicians and they can name, here's an EC 2740, and you think, I just can't.
I'm not either.
Yeah, I can't be doing with that. But
no.
But saying that, you look at my setup and I've got like a Kemper and all things like that. It looks like I'm into all that sort of stuff. But I've sort of got that. I've downloaded Fender amps and Marshall amps, and then I've got something that I like, and then I kind of sort of semi-stick with it. And I try. You get people at every gig they're tweaking things, and you just think,
I've always thought that type of thing is more of a keyboard player's domain of just having gear. But they sort of seem to know how to use. Whereas guitar, I've always thought with guitarists, it's like, well, it's just got this amp off a mate of mine type of thing, or it was in my day anyway. I don't know. Whereas I don't know, maybe that's just another thing. I don't know.
Well, I do. I must admit, I rate the Kemper really highly. I think it's an absolutely phenomenal bit of kit. And if you spend enough time. And it's not difficult to use, and it's you spend some time with it, you can get pretty much any sound you're after, really. And I'm certainly not one of these people as well that sort of listen to. Like recently, I did talking about Lionel Richie again, but I managed to get involved in the Lionel Richie show. But although I love that kind of stuff, I kind of didn't really go down the route of trying to pinch someone's sound. I still kept my sound. Which some people say, "Oh no, it's a bit too much," and so it's a bit
So, what was the first show that you did like that?
I think it was the Magic of Motown show. I did a couple of Deps on that. Well, my first Dep was horrific, absolutely horrific, and I thought, "Oh, that's it. I'll never get a phone call again." And then I think I got a phone call next week, the week later. But it was a shockingly bad show. I thought it was anyway.
Well, the show was not good, or just
me playing, and it was just no matter how much I think you practice these things. When you go in and suddenly you're on stage and you're playing, and the speed of one song into the next, and then they suddenly change a bit and they do something else, and you're left a bit. It's like rabbit caught in a headlight sort of thing.
Yeah, no, it can, and a lot of that is sometimes you have to. If you're depping, you haven't had the time to sort of settle into
the band and how the band is, and
exactly,
and it's so it was a real learning, it was a bit of a massive learning curve, but it was like one of the things I thought, oh, that's it, I'm done now. I'll never get a phone call again. But I think a big part of it is actually getting on with people. I think more than you playing.
Oh my God! I think that is the most critical thing about being a successful artist, anyway. Is getting with people, isn't it?
So if you go in as a Dep and you're a pain in the arse from the get go, I think people just think, that's it. But it was so maybe hopefully people got me.
I had an interview with Chris Dagger, who is a bass player, and he's worked with, I think he's been working with George Ezra quite a bit. But he was saying when he first started off, he went to loads and loads of auditions for things, and he said it was just like, it was just a disaster. Everything just didn't work out for him at all. And he got onto one thing, and then it didn't work out for him. And then I think it was a bass player, a drummer that he knew, put him on, they were short of a bass player for this particular show, and he got in on the strength of this drummer. And then after that, he said, that was it. Once you're in it, it's the connections.
It's totally about connections and circles of people. Yeah. And that's, getting into it is the difficult part of it, I think.
Yeah. So again, he was sort of saying, because he's a really funny guy and easy to get on with and all the rest of it. Because that doesn't come across in an audition, does it?
No.
You don't get chance for people to see your personality. But of course, if you work with somebody and they know who you are and you're reliable, that's like gold dust, isn't it?
Yeah. And I think that's what it was. And maybe I did at that beginning stage as well. Actually, this is probably going back about 5 years ago when this all kicked off, really. It was kind of an odd thing, just a bit of a personal thing, but those sort of 20s to my sort of mid 30s, I got married, I had kids and all stuff like that, and then all that kind of fell apart. Actually fell apart because I went back and did a degree in music. It was an online degree, but because I focused so much on that, it was all around the same time. So I don't know if that was part of it, but where was I going with this? I can't remember now. So yeah, about 5 years ago, it all sort of kicked in with this. I met a guy through a bass player. I don't know if you know Ian Dobbins. He's quite local. I don't know if you know him.
Not sure.
Great player, actually. But it was through him, really, that all these other connections spilled out. And it's and then from the Motown, because he knows this guy, the guy that runs the shows I'm in now, he phoned him and said, "Oh, can your mate would be interested in doing this?" And then that's how I got the Tina Turner show and sort of moved into that.
So which one is this the Tina Turner one you're doing now?
I do at the moment, because it's the same production company,
right?
And the same cast, the same band, but we do a Tina Turner show and a Whitney Houston show.
Oh right. Oh blimey.
Kind of vastly different sort of things, yeah. Which is
still epic ballads.
Yeah, epic, massive ballads in the And it's amazing because obviously the singer, Alicia, she does both. And it's to do one thing one night and then the next.
That's amazing.
It's
that is amazing.
Yeah. But she is like, people are talented, and then she's up there.
Well, I've always thought, because I quite like theatre, musical theatre. When you see the level of talent in musical theatre, it's mind-boggling. Their voices and their ability to project and sing in different sort of styles. And you look at sort of the sort of people that you think are the pop stars, and they're not nothing in comparison. I think musical.
No. I always find it's about having an original sounding voice, isn't it? I think.
Yes, it is. But which is something you don't get now. Definitely don't. No, you don't. No, mind you, it might be the case that there's always been a certain style of voice in a certain period of time. Because I was listening to some sort of like 1930s sort of French, Parisian sort of stuff. But just generally in that time, there was all this strange vibrato in the singing, which you sort of think, and it sort of dates it to that particular time.
Oh.
Because now we've got this sort of warbling type thing that goes on in vocals now.
I call the Mariah Carey effect.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
Or it's some sort of weird, almost like
it drives me
computer
insane.
sort of thing that who was it?
Oh, you're talking about auto tune, or are you talking
No,
about
it's not so much auto tune. I'm
when
trying
they're
to
going
think.
up and down? Like,
Yeah, it's that sort of warbling type thing that happens.
Yeah.
But who was it? I've forgotten her name. Who sang the Titanic thing?
oh, Celine Dion.
I've got a feeling it was either Celine Dion or I think it might have been Celine Dion. She was the first one that I heard imitate this sort of computerized sound. It wasn't, it was her actually being able to do it like you could do in a studio. And I started to think, this is quite interesting because I teach, I don't do too much of this now, but I used to teach quite a lot of singing. But a lot of it's about performance, right? And getting into character and all that type of thing, instead of it just being scale exercise and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
But what I was fascinated by was, depending on who the flavour of the month was as a vocalist, right? The girls, particularly, because it's mostly girls, they could sing like that. Even when somebody had an original voice, give it 6 months and you got kids coming in who could do that stuff because it was in their head. And yet before that, whether it was an Adele or a, whatever, that wasn't there. Or a Beyonce. It was like, no, that's Beyonce, right? That's the Beyonce sound. And then suddenly you get a load of kids who can do the Beyonce thing.
Yeah.
So, I'm quite intrigued by this, how that, the machinery, it's now the machinery is what people seem to be copying, weirdly.
It's one of the things, a live thing, that it's a bit of you sort of like start doing that and you think you've lost all the melody of the song.
Yeah.
You've actually lost the rhythm now, and you find it hard to actually get back into them.
Yeah.
And it just,
No, I get you. I get that. Yeah, I do. So it must be amazing doing that show with somebody who can sing that sort of material.
Oh yeah, she's absolutely something else.
What's her name?
Alicia Paul Moses. She's done things like The Voice and X Factor and all things like that, and she got quite far with those kind of things and that kind of stuff. But yeah, to be able to switch from one to the other. And it's not just that though as well, because obviously there's been depths involved and stuff. It's the fact that she can walk on, she controls the crowd as soon as she walks on, and that's where that something else is.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's an absolutely phenomenal thing, I think. And it makes kind of going to work. Obviously you're playing the same stuff over and over again, but every gig is a real pleasure to play, and it's really, it makes it really good because you're backing someone like that, that's that good, that you end up playing good yourself, trying to play good as good as you can all the time and things.
That's amazing. And of course, if you're on stage as well, you get, you get the opportunity to sort of see the audience and get the feel of what's going on stage. Obviously, once you know what the heck it is that you're playing, if you see what I mean. What do you sort of, is there anything you sort of pick up from that when you watch somebody who's that good, being able to control an audience? And
just the knowledge that I could never do anything like that, I think. Yeah.
All right, then.
That kind of, I just haven't got that kind of character, the way to do it, I don't think. But I'm quite bad on stage. I do shout things out quite a lot, and I probably shouldn't. And I'm a bit sort of the one that's makes a lot of jokes. There was a great one in Scotland the other week. We did Glasgow, and I just said, for the fun of it, I just said, "Oh, when you announce my name, can you say from his hometown, just for a laugh?" And the place just went insane because obviously Rob Ferguson.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that makes sense, doesn't it? Yeah.
Really, really made me laugh. It was brilliant.
Hopefully nobody came out afterwards.
I've probably got family there, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's sort of silly stuff like that. I kind of, which I shouldn't do, really.
That's all part of it, isn't it?
Yeah, kind of. That's what makes one show different to another, and things. It's It's good. It's good fun. But it's so much, really. When we came back after, obviously, theatres opened again. I think we had almost like a year's worth of shows in 3 months.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of us were burnt out by the end of it. Just, I've been in Scotland, I've been in Essex, I've been, I've been all over the country constantly. It was just, it was hard for everyone, I think.
Yeah, because I was just say it's been a bit of a weird time. Let's face it. Because again, it's like one of those things that, well, you can't turn anything down, can you? Because you don't know when it's going to, kick off again, type of thing.
I'm sort of feeling in a good place at the moment. I don't think we can go back to that, locking people up again. I think that's just silly.
Well, I think we've got to that point, haven't we, in this country where it's, well, I'm saying that, touch wood, where it's like, well, what do you want? Do you want some sort of semblance of an economy?
Exactly. Yeah.
Or do you want to continue, locking people up? Because for most people, it doesn't seem to be so problematic at the moment. So
no. So hopefully, and actually, it did a good thing. I've been obviously teaching, and I've got my studio here at home, so I teach privately in the evenings and stuff. But obviously, I've been teaching in schools for years and years, and I think I'd burnt myself out doing it as well. And I'd got to a point where I was getting a little bit, I can't keep doing this every September, trying to teach someone an A chord. And I'd got to that point where it was hard work. So shows sort of come back, right, you've got all these shows, right, I can't do that and keep teaching at school because there's no way I can get in at 5 o'clock in the morning and go out and do a day. And so I gave the schools up in the end, and it was, at the moment, touch wood, is the best thing I've done, I think, for a long time. Yeah.
Well, this is another point. You're hitting a lot of good target points here, Rob, actually, because I think this is one of the things that people sort of forget with this. It's easy to burn out doing teaching, particularly when you've got, because the very nature of how it's done, it's a quick turnaround with people. So you can't sort of sit back and do nothing. You've always got to start at the beginning of that lesson, and it's, give it your all, and then it does it again half an hour later or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's exhausting, isn't it?
Yeah, very, very mentally exhausting. Yeah,
it's mentally exhausting, absolutely.
And physically as well, because obviously I've noticed a lot of my back problems that I had, I don't have so much now as well. So there is that element, because obviously I'm not sitting on a chair and then by 2 hours you start hunching over more and more. So a lot of that's gone, and it's not as bad as it used to be.
Yeah, no, I get that, and also the fact if you travel a lot in order to teach, that can be a part of the problem as well, can't it? Because I think that's one of the things that a lot of people don't appreciate with that sort of peri teaching. It's not like classroom teaching and stuff, is it?
No, totally different discipline, isn't it? I think
it is, and having to sort of motivate kids to learn can be actually quite difficult. Okay, the guitar's not so bad from that point of view, that if they've turned up, it's probably because they want to do it, not because their mother or their grandmother has bought them a cello or something. You know what I mean? It's more a case that they're doing it because they want to do it. So that's a start. But then it's still a case of being able to find out what it is that really gets them fired up, as well as being able to,
that's it. Yeah,
slide the information in that they need and all the rest.
And like you said, the classroom teaching, you've got a lesson plan for that 30 kids, you're doing this, but you're tailoring every half hour
exactly
to multiple levels, different interests and everything. Yeah, so you're constantly,
it's really difficult. It's difficult. So you're not doing any schools now at all?
No, that's it. So I stopped that September last year when obviously the shows kicked back in. And then I just do obviously my evening, like in the studio at home, sort of private lessons. People come to me, and some of those kids that were from school have come to me in the evenings as well,
Yeah.
which is, you know, rather than staying, because I kind of got a guy in to replace me, so I didn't leave him in the lurch or anything like that kind of stuff, and then so it all kind of sort of worked out and kind of, yeah, it was quite good in the end.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, again, similar to me, I did something like that. But yeah, I think that's really interesting. So what's the, you know, how are you sort of seeing things now? You're obviously doing some shows and stuff like that. I mean, have you got, this is a stupid question to ask a musician. What plans have you got?
My 2-year plan. This is what we're talking about.
Yeah. What's your 5-year plan? And yeah.
Yeah, because where I was doing just the Tina show to start with, I was doing a lot of teaching. I was still in schools, and so it was kind of a balance between the two. It was quite nice. And then I got offered the Whitney show as well, and so I thought, right, let's do this. Let's give up school, and then I'm going to do this for 2 years, as solid as it is. Because it's like this year, there's like, I think there's over 160 shows in the diary. You know, it's right. An insane amount of shows, and but at the same time, I've just and actually just done this like literally yesterday. Just enrolled on a master's degree course. So I still was thinking, if I do that, which is quite nice, in the back of the bus, I can just sort of write some stuff up, or, you know, that kind of thing, and over sort of some time, and then see where I am in 2 years, and then see if I can maybe pull back a bit on the shows. Yeah, I'd love to get into sort of higher education. Really, that's where I'd like to, you know, sort of specialised music college rather than school level, you know, that kind of thing. I think that's where I'll try to see myself maybe in a few years.
Well, that's a plan.
Yeah, see if it works.
That is a plan. It's a plan. So, with well, just out of interest, I mean, if you're thinking about like a master's, what way would you do that?
I found this. It's actually part of University of West London, AMS Online.
Okay. Yeah,
yeah, that thing. I don't know, you know, but they do the online masters version. But I was talking to the guy the other day, and he's pretty much the same course as what you would do if you actually physically went to the thing. But obviously, the good thing is you can just record yourself, upload the video, and all that kind of, if you need to do things like that. So I thought this is, and my degree I did, because I only did that sort of 5 years ago as well. That was all online as well.
Well, that's interesting, because in actual fact, you know, obviously before all of this kicked off, you know, I think that looked like the way that education was going to go long term.
Yeah,
because you know, with schools, I mean, you know, schools are really sort of glorified child-minded things, aren't they? Really, but it's a case of, you know, you imagine I don't know about the difference in cost and all that sort of stuff, but being able to do something online and be able to get a qualification must be much more cost effective overall than.
It's got to be, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, it's got to be. Yeah, and really, and it means that you could easily study in places that you would never be able to study if you wanted to, if you had to travel there, like Berkeley or something like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and pay the living costs to live in London or
abroad or whatever.
Yeah. You just I think it's definitely the way forward, especially for that level.
Yes,
I do. Yeah, I still think sort of kids need to be around kids.
Yeah. I'm just
social, yeah, but yeah, I don't see why a lot of degrees aren't really going on. Well, they have been anyway. Some of my students have gone to uni, and they've not actually yet physically gone to uni yet.
No.
Because of obviously what's happened, and it's all gone online anyway. So it's,
yeah, absolutely.
And I did say that to him, and I said, "So you've paid X amount to do this?" I said, "I'd ask for a couple of grand back if I was you."
I think that's makes everybody reflect on, you know, what I think this is the point really, is about reflection on what education's about, because we haven't done that for a long time really properly. Because if you think about what you learned at school, and well, obviously you spent a lot of time playing guitar at school, so but you know what I mean, there's a whole bunch of stuff that you missed out on that you didn't need, as it turned out.
Yeah.
And you know, there's so much stuff that you're sort of learning that's like pointless at school.
Choice, optional choice, I think is a big thing. Because I read somewhere the other day that music's being taken out. They threaten it every year, don't they? It's being taken out.
Yeah, they do.
Things like that, but it's the same like drama.
Yeah.
I think my son only does drama now every other term, and and you think all these things are being dropped. But if you're that way in mind, if you're a child that's going to be good at that and not good at, I don't know, physics, you've limited their choice. So they're going to get a bad grade or whatever, whereas in that, they could have done really well. And I think that's where I suppose the online thing comes in really handy. Yes. I suppose that if you had a choice of, I'm going to pick that, and that, and make up your...
Yes. Yeah, well, this is what I was saying about, I think that's probably where it's going to go in the end.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Because one of the interesting points that again, you know, a lot of this comes from politicians meddling in education. Basically, you know, I remember somebody making a comment about we really need more engineers. It's like, yeah, but you know, the people who are going to be engineers are the ones who want to be engineers, not making people be engineers. I mean, it's nonsense. It's a completely ridiculous. And that attitude pervades education, actually. But you know, you really do need to do mathematics, but most of mathematics is doing stuff that you will never ever use again. And I was good at maths, you know, but never used it, you know.
Never used the algebra.
Well, there's a whole bunch of stuff. I've never found a rhombus that needed its area measured or anything like that. So you know, but there's lots of other skills that you think, well, we should be learning them. And they don't even get those at all, you know.
Yeah.
So I think that is an area that needs a lot of sort of looking at.
Root and branch kind of.
Yeah, and again, it's not going to change until it breaks.
Yeah, which is where I think the NHS is at. To be honest, I think.
Well, exactly. I think there are lots of things at that point that are breaking.
Yeah, I think. I think this last couple of years it's not because I've got some quite bizarre, what most people call bizarre views of COVID anyway, but I don't think it's because of that. I think it's mainly because of the way how the government have been about it. So you know, my partner's a midwife, so I kind of get.
Right, okay, yeah, I
get a lot of inside information
and let's face it, midwifery has become not really what midwifery was. I mean,
no, it's incredibly stressful, highly stressful. You know, I always sort of think that, you know, I try to work hard, but I'm nowhere near how hard she works.
No, exactly. That's right. And I think actually there's a lot of things literally at the point of breaking like that. So we shall see. Well, Rob, that was great. I'm fascinated because I've not really spoken to somebody who's done a lot of like show work like that, and I think it's really interesting for people to sort of, you know, because obviously when people think about creativity, you know, and one point of reference for me doing this is like, you know, if I was young, I would have really been interested in knowing what other people did who are doing the things that I would want to do, if you see what I mean.
Yeah.
And it's those sort of stories, because you always get an idea in your head that you do this and you do that, and then this happens. Whereas actually, because these stories are never like that when I interview people. It's always this sort of thing, well, a friend of mine said to me, do you want to, you know,
do this
thing? And it's, you know, it's not like you applied for a job and got it type of thing, as, you know, being on tour with Motorhead or something like, you know what I mean? It's just not like that.
And I always say that to students, actually, the ones that sort of go, "Oh, I'm going to university." I was like, so believe me, there is no such thing as a job. There is no such thing.
Well, somebody actually said, made a comment once about a career path in music, and you go like, "Sorry,
Yeah.
what's that?"
That's it.
That's nonsense. It's a load of lies.
Absolutely, yeah.
Don't listen to them. It's like, no, it's more like being an entrepreneur, isn't it? Being a musician. It's like seeing an opportunity for something.
Yeah, I think, yeah, definitely. Absolutely.
I'm going with that. And, and that's
I've never been so sort of, and I have met some players that have, you can tell their way of thinking is, well, if I go and talk to him and
yeah.
And and all that kind of thing. I've not really ever done that, and maybe that's why I've managed to keep going for a few years. And but because I just try and get along with everyone, not get involved in politics.
It's what they call. It's when they do the thing in the college courses called networking, and you go,
and it's like they've been taught to do that.
It is. Because they have.
Yeah, and what that does is just rub someone up the wrong way.
It does. It's not like, really the networking thing at the college should be right. Okay, you just go out for a beer.
Yeah, don't be a prat.
Don't be a dick, and just be nice to people.
Yeah,
right.
So much. It doesn't come down to your ability. Obviously, there is an element of
you're right. I know what you're saying. I totally get what you're saying.
Don't have to. Yeah, you don't have to be Steve Vai to do anything. You don't have to do. A lot of it is down to just being able to get on with people. Play what you're supposed to play, and obviously I think the reading aspect comes into it a lot, which is another thing that's not really taught so much now.
No. But again, that's the sort of thing. If somebody wanted to do the sort of show work, they've just got to learn.
They've got to learn to do it.
They've got to learn how to read, and then and for guitar, you just got to. That's something you have to do instead of it being something you did all the way along the line, like if you're doing saxophone or something like that, that's what you did. You can just
look at something and read and play. Yeah,
exactly. Well, Rob, that was great. Thanks for that. That was really good.
Excellent.
And
that's what I said to you. I'm not sure how interesting people will find it.
No, that's brilliant, because it's an area that I've not really covered with all these people that I've spoken to. Seriously, it's good. So I'll put your website on the show notes and stuff. And stuff like that. All right, so that
great,
yeah, and that'd be good. And obviously about the stuff about the shows as well. That'd be really good if you could send me some links for that.
Yeah, you'll have to let me know where you're based. I'll see. What's your closest theatre?
It's strange actually, because I'm sort of near Tunbridge Wells, right?
Tunbridge Wells, okay.
But in Sussex, so it's sort of, I'm the Sussex side of that. So I'm not far away from Lewes, not far away from Eastbourne. So Lewes, Brighton, but my wife goes down to Chichester a lot, to the theatre there.
Right,
fabulous theatre down there.
Yeah. If I'm doing anything local, I'll let you know.
Yeah, give us a shout. That'd be great. That'd be really good. Yeah, do. Excellent stuff. All right then, mate. Speak to you soon then.
Brilliant. Thanks.
Yeah, that's good. Cheers, mate.
Bye.
Yeah, so big thanks to Rob for that. It's quite interesting thinking about sort of show, playing in shows, etc. It's something I haven't sort of done very much. It's interesting, that story about how to get into those. It's very much to do with contacts. So anyway, you can reach Rob on the show notes. So until next time, I'll see you then. Bye.